What is up? Daniel here with the Virtual Robotics Studio, and we are back this time with the XRP Robot. XRP stands for Experiential Robotics Platform, and it's just this mini robot that has a lot of sensors built in. It's got motors, it's got a little servo on the back, but the coolest part of this robot for first teams is we can program this in WPILib the same way that you're going to program your first robot in January. So we're going to take you through how to get this robot set up. We're going to do some simple code for autonomous and some simple code for teleop to give you an idea of how programming is going to go. Before we get started, though, we have to give a special thanks to Argosy, whose funding made this video possible. All right, we're just about to start adding the firmware to the robot and getting our programming environment set up. But of course, my robot is already put together. If yours is not put together yet, we recommend checking out SparkFun's build video, which does a great job of taking you through the whole process of snapping it together. It's super easy, no tools needed. Everything just goes together. And make sure you get a set of AA batteries so you can power it up. All right, so what we're going to do, though, is we are going to head to the WPILib docs page. And that's kind of where we're going to find everything we need. So on this page, docs.wpilib.org / well, I think it'll fill the rest for you. But right now, we're filming this in December. And so we need to get the beta version of the 2024 code. So down here at the bottom, there is read the docs, and there's this version stable. And if you click kind of here, you get a list of all of the other possible versions for it. So if you want older versions of WPILib, they're here. We need to do the latest version because only the latest version, which is kind of the 2024 beta version, has the XRP support built in. And if you're doing this in January after the latest version is released for the 2024 season, then you can just grab the one that shows up when you load the website. So we're going to go down to XRP. So on here, there is a section titled ROMI and XRP support down here on the left-hand side. And if you click on getting started with the XRP, this is basically what we're going to do in the video. So you start with the XRP robot. We have a few things that we want to do. The first step is this hardware assembly and imaging. So we'll click on that link here. And then we're going to scroll down until you find download. And we're looking for the XRP WPILib firmware. And if you click on that, it's going to take us to a different page. And here you're going to scroll down until you find the assets here. And we're going to look for XRP WPILib firmware. We want this UF2 file, the very top one here. So go ahead and download that file. I already downloaded it. Make sure you know where you're saving it. I have a copy here on the desktop, so that is this file. All right, so the first thing we have to do is get our XRP robot connected to the laptop. So you're going to need a USB cable. This is like the old style phone. I think this is micro USB. Make sure, though, when you get your USB cable that it does both data and power. So some of these that might have come with like an old phone or a device might only have power for charging and not the data lines built in. So if it doesn't work, that might be the first thing to check. All right, I'm going to plug this into my computer. And then I'm going to plug this into the XRP. So right here, the green board, that's our Raspberry Pi. We are going to plug into the back here, kind of right next to where that power barrel jack plugs in. And you'll see some lights will start turning on, start blinking. That's because the USB can actually power it up. You don't really want to drive it around on the USB only power, but for right now, we can leave it turned off. Okay, then on the robot, we have to do kind of a two-step process to get it connected to our computer. So on the Raspberry Pi, there is a white button here, and it'll be labeled boot cell or boot select. So I'm going to end up holding that button down. And when I'm holding that button down, I am going to hit the reset button over here. So the reset button is on the red board. It's kind of in front of the power cable on the left-hand side if you're on the back. So there's a reset button right here. And I'm going to press that reset button, let go of the reset button, then I can let go of the boot select. And on my computer, I got a little autoplay warning here that our Pi RP2 has shown up. So it should show up and look like a drive is connected to your computer. So I can click on that and open the folder, or you can just open your own Windows Explorer and scroll down and find that RPi RP2. And what we're going to do is take that file we downloaded, that UF2 file, and just drag that onto the Raspberry Pi or onto our robot. So we'll let that copy over. Okay, and it disappears. So once it got that file, the robot now is basically restarting. So we should be able to see it in a second here. All right, so it's back. We have this status.txt file that we can look at. And this is basically just showing us that we are connected. This is good to know. So we're going to end up having to wirelessly connect to the robot to be able to program it. And this is where that info is going to show up. So the first thing is it's set to AP mode, which means it's going to be an access point, which means our computer can connect directly to the robot. The next thing here is this is the name of the wireless network. So the SSID is the name of the wireless network that we're going to look for, XRP dash. And your numbers will be different, but it should start with XRP dash. And then the password to log on to the wireless, and this should be the same for everybody, is XRP-WPILib, all lowercase. And then finally, this is the IP address of our robot. So this is the IP address we can go to or ping to test to make sure we're connected to the robot. So I can actually close these down now. I'm going to click on my wireless networks, and I am looking for that XRP dash wireless network here. And there it is. This is also a good time too because we're still just powering it with the computer. So I'll go ahead and say connect and do WPI dash, XRP dash WPI lib. So it should look like that. And you can click next. And I don't think it matters what you click here, but I'll just say yes. So while this is booting up, I am going to go back over to the robot. And I'm going to turn the power on, so we're on the robot's power and not just on the USB cable, because I can actually unplug the USB cable now. So there is a small switch, the barrel jack here. Right next to it, there's a very tiny, almost impossible to see switch here that'll say off and on. So you got to kind of reach down in there and pop it on. And your servo may or may not move when you turn it on. That's OK. But when you have that power on, you can go ahead and unplug the USB cable, and we should not need that anymore. And if you unplug the USB cable and your robot turned off, it's no big deal. Turn it on. It just takes a couple seconds for it to boot up. OK, so on my computer now, I can see that I am connected to the wireless network, XRP-whatever. It will say no internet secured. That makes sense because we're only connected to the robot. We're not connected to the internet. So that's what you should be seeing there. Then let's do a test. If I go back to my web browser here, I'm going to do a new tab, and I'm going to try to navigate to that IP address that we saw earlier. So that was 192.168.42.1. And we might have to do :5000. So the :5000 is the port. Don't worry about it. Just you might need to type that in if it doesn't load immediately with 192.168.42.1. So here we can see all of the same stuff that was on that text file. So this is where we can connect and see, OK, here's the password and the SSID. You can always plug it back into your computer and read the text file, but it's accessible here. And we could actually change stuff here if we wanted to. If I want my SSID name to be something else, I can actually just type the new thing in here and then hit save. I'm not going to bother doing that, but if you want to, you can. You can also change the password that way. And you can use the XRP robot through a router. Instead of AP mode, you would change this to STA. And that is in the documentation here. So as you go through kind of the other steps on the XRP, some of those things will show up. All right. Our next step, though, is we now need to get the programming environment downloaded and installed. So I'm going to, unfortunately, have to disconnect from my Romy. So I'm going to switch back over to my internet here, wireless internet. And we can probably you can turn off the XRP or not turn off the XRP. It's going to be a minute while we install our programming environment, which is going to be the WPILib version of VS Code or Virtual Studio Code. So it's going to kind of be on the same page that we were on. Make sure you're still on latest because we do need that beta version to work with the XRP. But I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top of this tab here. And we're looking for installing software step 2. So 0 to robot step 2. And this will have a list of all of the software that you need for the FRC robot. In this case, we don't need any of the first things. The only thing we need is this WPILib installation guide. So if you're a robot, you might need FRC game tools. And if you're doing LabVIEW programming, you would need LabVIEW. But for the XRP, we just need WPILib installation guide. So click on that. And we're going to scroll down. And there is a big downloading box here. and this says download for Windows. So go ahead and click on that and start downloading it. It's kind of a big file, so it might take, it's 2 gigabytes, so it might take a minute. I have already downloaded it, so I'm going to cancel my download. You should not cancel yours. And I've got that here on the desktop. So when it's done downloading, what you want to do is, this is actually what they call an ISO file, so or ISO file. So this has all the folders and stuff here. You want to basically open it. You can usually choose open, but I think mine is set up to open with 7-zip. So in this case, I just want to do open with Windows Explorer. So open will do this if you don't have other stuff installed, but open with Windows Explorer is where we want to go. And it's going to ask you, are you sure? We are sure. And this is going to show us a folder of the installer. Basically, at this point, you're going to just double-click on the installer.exe. And if Windows is trying to protect you, no, we're pretty sure this is a file we want to run. So if you click More Info, then you can choose Run Anyway, and that will start the installer. Okay, and basically, you're going to just follow the menu here. Click Start. I just do for all users, but you can do it for just the specific user that's logged in. And then here you have a bunch of choices. If you're only doing this on one computer, choose Download for this computer only, fastest. And we got this little progress bar here. So I don't know. I don't understand. We downloaded the 2 gigabyte file, but it turns out there's more that it has to download to get ready to install. So we're just going to let it do its thing. When that finishes, you can click the Next button. And now this is going to just take a minute. So this is doing the actual install here. So we'll just let this run. All right. So we are finished. It ran all the way through. So we'll go ahead and click Finish. We don't need this anymore. On your desktop, it should have made 3 shortcuts. One of them is the documentation. One of them is tools. We aren't really going to use any of the tools. And the last one is 2024 WPILib VS Code. That is the version that we are looking for. So you can double click on that to run your programming environment here. And let's go ahead and get our first program created. So if you click the W up here in the corner, and by the way, this whole time, your XRP robot can be off. We're going to basically turn it on and connect to it just before we're ready to start downloading code. Otherwise, it's just sitting there wasting battery, although probably not much battery. All right, so for WPILib commands, we are always going to click on this little W here. So this whole environment that we're programming in is called VS Code, or Virtual Studio Code. But this WPILib stuff that we added on is kind of all in this little W button in the top corner here. So if you click on that, we'll have a bunch of options. We are going to start typing the word create. And I think when you type the word create, or probably just CRE, you'll be able to find create a new project. And so you're going to click on that. And that will take us to our WPILib project creator tab. Okay, and we're going to click the select a project type. And examples you can do, if you do examples, you'll go in, you'll be able to see a bunch of examples of different specific aspects of the robot. You could see an example for the gyro. You could see an example for encoders. The XRP robot also does have an ultrasonic sensor on the front and some line followers down here on the bottom. So both of those sensors you could use. Those sensors tend to not be super important or super helpful in FRC. So for our version of code that we're going to do, we're going to not really work on those. But if you have some extra time and you want to go through some of the other XRP documentation that's out there and some of the programs they have, it's also a really good learning tool. But we're going to start with template. So template will give us the whole framework for our program. So we'll pick template up here instead of example. Okay, and then we get to choose the language. So we can do C++ or Java. I'm going to choose Java down here. Okay, and then finally, what template do we want to do? So we'll scroll down to find that there are 2 XRP templates. One of them is command, and one of them is timed robot. So the difference is command robot is a little bit more complicated. You kind of break your stuff out into different commands, into different finals. You have a little bit more overhead when you're setting it up. But it might be a little bit more powerful as you get confident and comfortable in the programming language and environment. Timed robot, which is what we're going to use today, is sort of the simplest way. Everything is in one file. We're going to be looking in one place. And it's really easy to get your robot up and running and to sort of understand what's going on if you don't have any of that programming background. So let's choose XRP timed robot. Okay, next choice, it wants to know the base folder where we're going to save stuff to. So you can select a project folder. This is just where it's going to make a new folder for this project and any additional projects. So I like to just go desktop, but I don't have too many different projects happening. If you want, on your desktop, you could make a new folder that was just like my XRP programs. And then go ahead and select that folder if you want it. Choose select folder down here. And it should give you basically the path to that folder here. OK, then the project name. So this is for this specific project that we're doing, the name of the project. And I'm going to call this one my XRP. I guess this is just going to be our test code. So XRP test and 1. But you should name it something that makes sense to you. So maybe you're following along with the video. So maybe you want to name it, this is the XRP video code. And then when you make a new project later for your students maybe to go through and get more comfortable with it, they'll make a new project, which is their preseason code or whatever. So if you name it and you have all this stuff in the folder, when you go back to that folder later, you can remember, OK, this is the one we followed along the video with. This is the one we were doing on our own afterwards. This is what we've been working on during the season, which is supposed to maybe help us get ready to transfer the code over to the first robot. All right. We will check create a new folder. That's good because we want it to make a new folder inside of this project folder. Team number, I'm going to put a team number in. I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter what you put here. But just to be safe, go ahead and put your team number in. My team number for today is going to be, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have to check this enable desktop support button. So this enables simulation testing, and the simulator is what actually is used to connect to the XRP robot. And finally, we're ready to click Generate Project. And it's going to ask, where do you want this project to show up? So yes, current window means it's just going to put it in the window that's here. If I want a brand new window, I can do that. That doesn't really make sense to me. And then we can also just not open it, which doesn't seem helpful either. So I'm going to do yes, current window. All right, and we're going to go through, we're going to talk about what's here in the code, do the basics of what we're looking at, and then we'll come back in the next video with our autonomous code. So on the left-hand side here, first of all, you'll see on the bottom, it's kind of going through a whole initial build process. So this is going to take some time, depending on how fast your computer is. Now, one thing to watch out for is when this finishes, if it says build successful, you're all good. You're ready to go. If, on the other hand, you get some errors here, that usually means that you had to be connected to the internet when you created this program. So I had a few computers where I was trying to set this up, and I got build errors. I connected to the Wi-Fi, went through the steps of creating a new project again. So I went back and did the whole new template, picked all that stuff, ran it again, worked perfectly fine. So if you get an error without changing the code at all, of course it should work. It is the default code outline. So if you get that error, go ahead and redo it, but make sure you are connected to Wi-Fi that has internet access. All right, but if you get build successful, great, ready to move on. Down here also, when we run the code, if you have any errors, it's going to show up down here on the bottom in this terminal window. On the left-hand side here, we have a few different tabs that we can choose. If you want to search through your files for something, you can go to the Search tab. We're not really going to use the source control, run and debug, or extensions, so they're there. The top one is the Explorer, and that is going to show us all of the different files that are part of our project. Here's the good news. There's a lot of stuff here. We get to ignore pretty much all of it. The only thing that we care about is right here in SRC, so that stands for source. Click on that to expand it. And then in Java, same thing, click on that to expand it. We have 3 files in Java. The first one is main.java. This kind of just sets everything up for us. It's like, you know, our big overriding thing that's gonna run first. We don't have to ever touch this. We're not changing it. We're not editing it. So basically, we can ignore it. Robot.java is where we're going to do all of our work. Okay, and XRP drivetrain is part of the example, but in this video, we're actually going to delete XRP drivetrain and then kind of redo it all in the robot.java file. So let's go through what is in robot.java here. I'm going to drag this over just so that you can see more of the code window. And at the very top here, we start with our package, which is it's an FRC robot. It's just always going to be there. Don't worry too much about it. These imports are every type of thing we want to use on the robot is going to show up. We're going to have to list it here as an import so that we can access it and work with it. So on this robot, we are going to potentially use the motors. Well, not potentially. We will use the motors. So we're going to have to say, hey, let us use XRP motors. We'll do an import for that. If we want to use the servo, we'll have to do an import for the servo. Same thing with if you wanted to use the ultrasonic sensor or the line follower, or there's a gyro on the robot here, or there are encoders. So for all those things, we're going to have to say, hey, we want to be able to use this. So we add that to this import section. Once we're done setting up the import, we're going to scroll down a little bit more in the code. We then have this public class robot extends timed robot. And this is where we create like the specific versions of things for our robot. So for example, we talked about up here maybe saying, hey, let us use XRP motors. Down here, we actually have to list, well, we have a left motor and a right motor. So we have to create specific objects for those two motors, one for each side. Okay, then we'll scroll down a little bit more. Robot init. This code runs one time at the very start of the robot turning on. So you turn the robot on. Any code we put here runs just once. And there's some things we might want to put there and some things that don't go there. If we scroll down, we have robot periodic. Robot periodic runs over and over and over again. It never stops. It just keeps looping through, running the code in there repeatedly. And I don't know how fast it gets. It's something like 50 times a second. I don't know, maybe 20 milliseconds a loop. So if we want stuff that just happens constantly, no matter what mode the robot is in, we would put it here. Scroll down a little bit more. We have autonomous init. So again, there are two modes for controlling the robot. In an FRC game, the first 15 seconds is autonomous mode. In autonomous mode, the robot has to be completely pre-programmed. So you are standing back behind a line, your controller's up on the table, you can't touch it. The robot has to do everything following pre-programmed instructions. So that's autonomous mode. Then there is teleoperated mode or driver control mode. So after the 15 seconds of auto mode ends, then you step forward, you grab your controller, and you drive the robot. So that's teleoperated mode. So we can see in our code now, we have autonomous init, which is running one time just before autonomous starts, just when autonomous starts. We have autonomous periodic, which then runs over and over again while we're in autonomous mode. So this is where we actually will put our like, hey, robot, drive and turn and get to the right spot on the field for autonomous. Scrolling down some more, we have the same two areas or functions or methods, whatever you want to call them, for teleop. So teleop init runs one time when we first start teleoperated mode. Teleop periodic then runs over and over again while we're in teleoperated mode. So teleop init will be if there's anything we have to get set up really quickly. And then teleop periodic is where the actual control stuff is. Okay, there's also a disabled state. You can turn the robot off. It should be a safe state, but you can actually have code running there. Usually, if you have code running here, it's like getting your sensors ready, doing background calculations. It should not be driving motors because disabled things shouldn't move. All right, and then if you scroll down a little bit more, we also have test init and test periodic. So test, you can put code in test that you don't want to be part of the actual robot code that's going to run when you're out on the field. So test mode is just a place where you can throw a little snippet of code, test it, see if it does what you expected, and then you'll end up moving that code into either autonomous, teleop, or disabled, wherever it needs to be. All right, so we have finished setting up our XRP robot. It should be ready to go. We got the new firmware on there. It should be built. We got batteries in it. And we installed the programming environment that we're going to use, that WPILib VS Code. Kind of learned the basic architecture of the program. So we should be ready to move on and start our autonomous programming. That's going to be our next video. But before we go, as always, we have to say a special thanks to the Argosy Foundation for making this video possible.